Isn't it kind of weird? We were just talking about a hypothetical trade to go out and get Emmanuel Clase, and then this happens, which would almost open the door for something like that. Now going out and getting one of those guys actually makes sense. He'd be wicked expensive, but you've told me that's the guy you want, and you'd be willing to give up a pretty penny to do so. Personally, for me, I'd be okay trading for somebody like that because he's got 5 years of control. And he's a 26-year-old, probably best closer in baseball, one of them. I mean, I'd be okay with that with the caveat I wouldn't give up the top two. I wouldn't I wouldn't give up Jason Dominguez, and I wouldn't give up Spencer Jones. And I think the rest I'd be okay with. Now, I'm not just going to unload my farm system, because keep in mind the Soto deal. You had the Gallo deal they're still recovering from in a sense, right?
That's right.
They have deals where, that still hurts. Like even the John Birdie deal, like at some point, Cruz could end up being really good for the Marlins. It's why they traded a starting shortstop. We all knew that he was going to be their starter, and they traded him away because they liked the package. You're offered something you like, you take it. So I think it's fair to say that the Yankees could be fairly aggressive because the flexibility they have not going out and making one of those moves early on. They've been linked to Clase in the past. If they were going to go for anybody, like if they were going to spend a big, bunch of money for a reliever, it'd have to be somebody like that for me to do it.
Yeah, and you definitely want leverage, because if you just brought up Soto's deal, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, because you can't just go make trades if you don't have a backup plan. We always talked about teams don't usually make trades unless they have something to fall back on. And obviously there's crappy organizations out there that don't know what they're doing. They might make those mistakes. But the Yankees usually, like we saw it this year, Hamilton's replacing Michael King, right? That's the very clear decision.
He's replacing what Johnny Brito would be this year.
That's exactly right. So having said that, if the Yankees were going to go get involved with Clase, when you're talking about probably a top 2 closer in the game, you're talking about a guy with 102 mile-an-hour cutter, someone that obviously he would be on anyone's wish list. If Clase becomes available, it's not just the Yankees calling, everyone's calling. Okay. Same thing with Edwin Diaz. If he becomes available, it wouldn't be just the Yankees trying to, they're not trying to kick the tires. Literally everyone's going to be doing that. So having said that, the Yankees are not going to deplete their farm system and go get a closer, someone to replace Lowe, and not just replace them, surpass that production, if they don't have any assurance on what's happening with Juan Soto, what's happening with Gleyber Torres, what's happening with the rest of these roster decisions. Because once they have that, in my opinion, they can get more aggressive.
So do you think that, like, if they traded for Clase, say today, do you think Juan Soto's pretty much giving them like the thumbs up, like I'm coming back?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess you can never say, I would say that would be Juan Soto per se, because the way Scott Boras works, and I'm fairly certain Soto is a Scott Boras client, is that Boras doesn't work that way. He's never worked that way with any organization. He essentially tells you, if you want to negotiate with my client, his price is going to be determined in the offseason. And having said that, based on that history with Boras himself, you're not going to go make a deal and have any assurance from Scott Boras that this guy's going to be around. Now, most people can assume Juan Soto is going to be a Yankee next year. I would assume he'd be a Yankee. But that's because Hal Steinbrenner feels like we can't lose this guy. Just very similar to what you saw at Aaron Judge. So you basically have to say, am I willing to make the bet that we are going to go get this guy? If the answer is yes, you're going to put your eggs in that basket, there's no reason that you shouldn't get aggressive on the trade market. But if you feel like there's doubt in what's going to happen with Boras and Soto, then maybe you stand pat. So I guess we'll see what they think.
Just kind of looking, you at home, if you're watching these games, these are guys that I think the Yankees will be scouting. Like you have, obviously your pro scouts are out there on the road watching these guys, but you're seeing them up close and personal. Like Aaron Boone could go to Brian Cashman and be like, I need Edward Cabrera. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. So, even just in warmups, just getting a chance to get a feel for how they work and things like that, you can pick up on things. And keep in mind, not long after that, they're in Cleveland, and they'll probably see Clase. Probably 2 of those 3 games will be.
I don't want to see him at all.
Yeah, but he's one of those guys that you bring in like a a hater, even when you're not winning, you bring him in, just to get him work early in the year, and I think that's probably what we'll probably see. And so it's just an opportunity to scout these guys. I guess it really depends on, where Cleveland is. I mean, if they are in the thick of things, I don't think they move anybody. But I mean, if they have a bad year at the deadline, I could see them moving everybody. I could see them moving Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, they've been flirting with trading away guys. Remember, people have been calling on Jose Ramirez for years.
Everyone, and they're a small market team too.
Yes, that at some point, people assume that you're going to break up. You're going to break up the band. But sometimes that organization, and they did it with an extension with Jose Ramirez. Okay, maybe this doesn't break up.
I mean, just be ready, because trade deadline, we are going to be crazy loaded with content. Gary and I were talking about this before we had a show last year.
And we're literally going to get one of those guys, maybe.
Yeah. But we'll still be crazy with the content. So appreciate you guys as always. Be sure to follow us on our social media below and at Yankees on Lowdown on all social media. We'll see you guys in the next video.
And never forget to like this video.